なんだこれは。
Jujutsu Kaisen is much better than I remembered. For many years now, the wide majority has praised, and I mean praised, this series profoundly. Jujutsu Kaisen has not only become one of the most talked about anime, but has earned a wide and loyal fanbase. And for many years, I have been putting off reading this manga. As of late though, I've had a change of heart. The manga is ending soon, or already has ended by the time you're seeing this, so what better time than now to finally sit down and give this series another go. What I say about this modern shonen may surprise you. These are my honest, raw thoughts on Gege Akutami's widely renowned and extremely wholesome Jujutsu Kaisen. Naturally, this video will not contain spoilers past the point of the anime. Much like before, I'm reading this through the existing volumes. With that said, I must say, I was not a fan of this series to begin with. Back in 2021, when the anime's first season finished airing, my friends and I got together to stream through it all as the pandemic was still a thing, and I did enjoy it. I thought the animation was obviously superb, I thought the action sequences were really well done, and I still do think a lot of them holds up well. It was the new talked about shonen at the time that was bringing more people into anime. It was battle shonen galore and did its job very well, but that wasn't enough to leave a lasting impression on me. Then a year later, the movie came out, Jujutsu Kaisen 0, acting as the series prequel. Great animation, great action sequences, even great world building, and I honestly liked the story this movie contained more than the initial anime, but the result was still the same. The characters for the most part hadn't done enough for me to feel invested, the story was simple enough, and ultimately, it just didn't give me a reason to keep watching. For a series that was talked about so much, for a series that grew insanely popular, what I had seen of it was honestly mid. However, this changed. This changed all through experiencing the highs. This changed through season 2. The hidden inventory arc, covering Gojo's past, and of course the Shibuya arc are what did it for me. What finally gave me interest. Naturally going into this I was expecting the same thing, but boy am I glad I was wrong. Characters who I viewed as bland and forgettable quickly became ones I would care for greatly. For example, Todo. I really didn't care for this man in the beginning, and now he is one of my favorite characters. Getting to see and understand why people loved this show a lot was great. I got to see a glimpse of that myself here. The fan favorite Shibuya arc exploded and evolved the narrative and characters, delivering a wonderful payoff to what was built up prior. It was a thrill to watch and read for, and through this arc, I grew to appreciate the early material a lot more the second time around. The beginning of JJK's story is quite slow, I'd say, but it just gradually revs up to fashion. One thing I must say about the cruelty of Akutami that I weirdly admire is his or hers ability to kill off characters when needed, even unexpected. It's honestly refreshing reading this approach after going through so many series where authors are often afraid to kill off characters, stringing them along for the entire course for absolutely no reason. Whereas JJK isn't afraid to do that. Nanami, for example. In most other manga, he probably would have survived, but as sad as his death was, I believe Gege made the right choice killing him off right here. For a character who was presented to be overworked and quite unhappy, finally finding peace as he approaches his death is a perfect way to send him off, and honestly made me really love his character. Followed after by the supposed death of one of the main characters, Nobara Kugisaki, her saying life wasn't so bad. A very bold move if Gege actually killed her off. Going back to the inventory arc, there are two characters I wish to talk about that I found to be the most interesting in this arc. Toji Fushiguro and Geto Suguru. The two villains, well, one in the making. First off, Toji's a Giga Chad and an extremely competent antagonist. Surprisingly, he's very important to the lore of JJK. He's quite a tragic character. Mistreated by the Zenin clan, which bared his resentment for them, killing Jujutsu sorcerers purely for money, and despite being a terrible father to Megami, in his own way, he cared for him greatly. Left him to be raised by the Zenin, even taking his own life once meeting him. Proud of his son, and proud he never took the clan's name. His actions effectively impact the characters Gojo and most definitely Geto. These two characters kinda go hand in sort of an unusual way. The very reason Geto became as villainous as he is now all snowballed from Riko declaring she wanted to live, then shortly dying immediately afterwards. Everything he was told was a lie. As a sorcerer, he was told how the strong must protect the weak, to realizing that curses came from the non-sorcerers, the very people he is meant to protect. And after seeing them applaud her death, losing Haibara, and the two sorcerers being abused by the non-sorcerers, he snaps and deems non-sorcerers as not worth fighting for, wanting to create a world with just sorcerers and free from curses. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, dude made the right choice. He was exposed to the cruel, harsh reality of being a sorcerer, and his sanity was pushed beyond belief. His negative character change is believable. Geto is a strong villain and character for the series, and he and Toji add to JJK's strong list of villains, including Mahito and of course, Sukuna. Just wanted to point this out quickly. After reading 18 volumes, I gotta say the artwork really reminds me a lot of early Bleachers. In fact, this series is littered with similar themes from Bleach, even Hunter x Hunter. JJK follows similar story beats from Bleach, and the curse power system reminds me a lot of Nen. So, as a big fan of both, naturally reading JJK was very welcoming. Of course, I want to give JJK its own identity, but I'd be lying if I said it was hard to notice. Back to Sukuna. I'll be honest, out of the list of JJK's villains, he's probably at the bottom in terms of favorites. Yes, he's insanely powerful, and yes, he's got that swagger. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. That scene where Sukuna destroys Shibuya after fighting Gojo and Mahagura, then switches back to Yuji, telling him to take a good look at what he calls this nasty work. If there is one thing I'll give Sukuna, he is absolutely monstrous. Even with that said, I mean, Geto's right there, Jogo as well, Mahito especially. In fact, he might even be the best villain. I really love how Gege made me hate this man, and he has been a great foil to Yuji, making him suffer time and time and time and time again, causing Yuji to snap at the end. Mahito was a personal obstacle Yuji had to overcome, bringing out the worst of him in the process. And besides that one scene I discussed earlier, Sukuna hasn't really done that to Yuji. Maybe this changes later, I'm not fully caught up yet. You may argue the burden Yuji has of being his vessel, but that mostly comes with Yuji viewing his own existence being a burden and the threat of Sukuna rather than his actions. Akutami, that one-eyed cat, really made a whole series for the sole purpose of making the main character suffer. Yuji Itadori is a good main character for this story. Yes, Yuta is a great character also, and I loved his story, but Yuji is more fitting for this role because he is more engaging to follow through, and for the most part, Yuta's story is already complete, whereas Yuji's basically begun, and he represents just how cruel his circumstances are. He barely wins against any curse he's up against. He loses basically all the time, with everyone in the Jujutsu world after him, wanting to kill him, even wanting to kill himself. He undoubtedly got thrown into a world he knows nothing about, forced to grow up in a violent one. I love JJK's approach to developing their characters. It's a lot more realistic this way. Yuji is nowhere skilled enough to fight curses, but it's because of that. Because of all the suffering he's endured this far, and still choosing to keep going and continuously trying to get better so that he doesn't lose any more people he's close to, that makes him really engaging to watch. He's essentially a small frog in a massive pond. He's similar to Gon in a way. He's by far one of the weakest characters, but that doesn't mean he's a bad one. He takes the backseat, forcibly overlooked. Different from all the other shonen heroes before him, this approach is refreshing and one I respect a lot. I like Yuji for what he is, not his potential. With that said, I've enjoyed my manga experience for JJK so far. I'm taking it slow because I'm unsure if I should continue with the manga or stick with the anime. Compared to One Punch Man, it was obvious the manga was superior, but for this series, I'm not going to lie, the adaptation is quite strong. You can go either way for experiencing this series. There's only 4 or 5 volumes left before I catch up, so let me know in the comments if you feel I should continue reading or stick with the anime. I've grown fond of Gege Akutami's work. This celebrates the core themes of battle shonen whilst making it feel entirely new. There is clearly a reason why people love this series so much. Whether it's the anime's animation, Gojo being all the high school girls' crushes, or maybe it's because this series is surprisingly good and reminds people why this medium is great. Whatever the case may be, Jujutsu Kaisen definitely deserves this traction, and I wonder where Gege will go next after finishing the manga. I'm really glad I gave this series another go. That about wraps up my thoughts for now, so if you've liked this video and want to see more, please consider subscribing as that will really help out a lot. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.